तद्गणेशाय विद्महे वक्रतुण्डाय धीमहि तन्नो दन्तः प्रचोदयाते। ॐ तत्परम्परयाय विद्महे ज्ञानलिङ्गेश्वराय धीमहि तन्नो गुरुः प्रचोदयाते। ॐ श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरि Om. Okay, so as we are exploring these really sort of fascinating ideas or the principles of the divine, the God, the goddesses, and the different potency, we looked at the absolute divine, then we looked at the incarnations of the Vishnu as the male worshipping quality, and then we looked at the Shakti qualities with the incarnations of the goddesses. And I thought today we will look into a little bit of the concept of what we call the Upasana. So the Upasana can be looked at, understood as a sadhana, as a way or as a tool to connect to the divine. And in that way, in the Sanatana Dharma, you will actually find that whichever aspect of the god or the goddess people believe or worship, or if they worship a tree or the river or the sun, the earth, the rituals, you will find them quite similar. So it's almost like these are the techniques or the tools that each one of us can use to invoke or to evoke whichever the quality of the energy we want to worship or connect or in tune with. And I think the next Sunday then I want to discuss on the abstract concept of the Iswara from the Sankhya, from the Tantra, and from the Mimamsa, where they don't believe in the gods and goddesses, they believe in the supreme power. So, in a way, I hope then by then we will have the understanding of the worshipping or connecting to the divine through the gods, through the goddesses, and then we also look at what are the aspects where people actually don't believe in these gods and goddesses. And this is where the Tantra and the Sankhya typically falls into that category of the abstract principle of the divine, like the yoga darshan. So Upasana, I think let me bring my slide. I think it will be easy, so then you all know the words I am talking about. So typically in the Sanatana Dharma, we use the word Upasana. Upasana, I don't like to translate it as like a worship path. So it's a little bit more like in the yogic terminology, we use the word sadhana. But because the sadhana is to come and connect with ourself, our self-realization, while Upasana is the process to attune, or align our mind, our consciousness, our experiential self with the divine or the higher principle. So this is, if you think of what's the difference between the sadhana and Upasana. So the sadhana is practices you learn for self-discipline, self-mastery. Upasana is also the tools and practices, a path you choose to follow, but it is to get closer to the divine. So in the typical Sanskrit word, Upasana can be translated as sit near the divine. How can I be near the divine? How can I connect myself to the divine? And or how do I in tune or attune? And the idea is then to build a relationship with the divine or the higher, the cosmic presence of that quality of the god or the goddess you worship, or the spirit or the guru or the nature, the tree, whatever you worship. How do I become one with that energy principle of the divinity. And then, hopefully then you can see the Upasana is actually a progressive journey. It's not a static journey, because as you will become closer and closer to the divine, your journey will become more fruitful, or there will be more excitement, more experience. Typically, Upasana has the two aspects. So the one is the Bahira Yajna. So the Yajna is understood to be like a ritual, like a practice, like an offering. So the Bahira Yajna is what we do externally. So think, like you prepare your space. You go and clean the temple, or you go and clean the church. You light an incense, you light a candle for whatever aspect of the god or the quality you believe in. So that becomes the Bahira Yajna. And then you have the Antar Yajna. So those are the inner practices where you work on your inner self, you work on your mind, your heart, your contemplation, your meditation. So the Upasana has the both seats. So think of, a Bahira Yajna, an external ritual can be in the modern life what we call a pilgrimage. You walk to the temple or you walk to the church. I'm not sure, probably I haven't really seen much of that. I know, like when we do the carol singing and stuff in Wales, at least, which I'm going to take part tonight. I'm going to go and meet with few local people and be part of it. So, walking from our door to wherever we go and do those invoking of the divine, that journey can be understood as the Bahira Yajna. Like in Portugal, I know they are quite like the Catholic system. They're very close to the Indian system. Like they have 3 different times of every year, in that people walk from wherever they are all the way down to Fatima. And like from Castelo Branco, I know people who have walked many times. They say it takes them 6-7 days to do that journey. So there is an external journey to get near that quality of the god or the goddess or the divine we believe or we worship. And then when you get there, then hopefully your prayer, your meditation, that becomes your inner worship or your internal journey. Now, in the invoking of any of the quality or on that path, a very first step is a sankalpa. So sankalpa can be like a virtue, like a vow, or like a mantra. So say like, if I was to do the pilgrimage from my home in Castro Branco all the way to Fatima, then my sankalpa can be hope that the consciousness of the Mother Mary or the Christ, the light, the blessing of the divine will bless my heart to be full of love, or maybe the wealth, or maybe the health or prosperity, whatever we're seeking in that journey. So taking that sankalpa, that I take a virtue, I take a practice, and I follow through that. I think probably maybe in the new year, we will do like a 11-day sadhana together, and then I will give you all a step by step how we set the sankalpa. Typically in the Hindu system, when we take a sankalpa, we might hold some flour, some water, sometime maybe some fruits, and we take a virtue. We take it's a little bit like a witnessing, witnessing out loud that from today, for let's say next 9 days, I'm going to do my mantra chanting, I'm going to do my invoking, and you also ask for your wish, what you wish from that journey, what you wish from it. And so it can be understood like a intention, like intent, like a determination. And you can think of this also like a setting up, like a bhavana, setting up like a thought, setting up an idea. And whatever the bhava we set up, hopefully the fruit of that bhava will manifest. I think like on the sankalpa, actually, there is a really amazing story of Swami Vivekananda. I'm sure you all would have heard about Swami Vivekananda. He came to West, he came to America in probably around the late 18th century or sometime around that. And, he took yoga and the Sanatan Dharma across the world and established Ramakrishna mission. Now, his guru, Ramakrishna, when he was very old, he actually had a cancer, or some people say like tuberculosis. So, and his pain and his chest was hurting, and every time he was coughing the blood. Now, everyone knew, including his disciple Vivekananda, that Ramakrishna Paramahansa, he can talk to goddess Sakti, Durga, or Kali every day in his prayers, in his upasana. So now Vivekananda, the disciple, think of the student who loves his guru and his master or his guide, is like, why don't you ask goddess to cure your cancer, cure the pain? And he said, oh, that's not my intention. Every time I meditate for the divine to bless me with love and abundance, the bliss. So anyway, so eventually the guru got really annoyed with Vivekananda, and he said, oh, wow, today, come with me and you ask for my wellness. So then they both go into meditation, and the guru regresses or transcends Vivekananda with him. And now they're both sitting and, in love with Goddess Kali and crying and enjoying that abundant ecstasy, if that's the word we want to use here. And then, a couple of hours later, when they came out, the guru looked at Vivekananda and said, did you ask Kali to cure my health problem? And he said, no, he forgot. He said, because when I went in with you, you took me with the sankalpa of love, the divine bliss, or to experience that Sat Chit Ananda, the absolute bliss. And in that bliss, I forgot about the problem. Or you can say there is no pain, there is no suffering. So the sankalpa in your journey towards the divine will also manifest appropriate experiences or fruits in that journey. So I think typically, I know in the Indian system, people may have sankalpa, like sometime when there's a illness going on, we do some sadhana to get rid of that illness. Sometime maybe we're struggling financially, so then we invoke Goddess Lakshmi and connect with this to remove the problems. So people have a different sankalpa at different point of their journey, including the absolute people like the bhakti people. Then of course their sankalpa is divine realization, love or bliss of the divine experience they want to get to. So in the upasana, then that sankalpa becomes the very first step. Now, typically, of course, as we look at in the Shiv Purana, that says, yad bhavam tad bhavati. So whatever one's intention is in the journey to the divine, that's the fruit will be there. So if you seek for the power, you get power. If you seek for money, you will be blessed with the money. If you seek for love and abundance or self-realization, then we receive that. And so then hopefully we can see that how intention plays such an important role in this journey of Upasana. The very second step is actually the purity or the socha. So typically, if people do the invoking of the divine in the temple, then somebody will sweep the floor, give a good bathing to the statue or to the Sivalingam or whatever you believe in, but also the purity of ourself. So a typical sort of Sanatani, to me, I think this is something I tell everybody really. If you are going to visit a temple or do some spiritual practices, if you can bath fully, that's great, but sometimes maybe it's not appropriately possible. They say the five anga, the panch anga, so the five organs should given a little bit of cleansing. So we have the feet, we have the hands, then we have the mouth, our vocal cord, our face, eyes, and then we have our genital and the anal area. So, not always people do it like a full wash. So sometimes they just sprinkle a bit of water, but those five cavities are very essential, the parts of your energy to be cleaned. If you can do the whole body, then that's great. So cleansing or the purification of the space, then the cleansing or purification of the body, and then for creating a vibe, an environment, then we light some fragrances, and a stable or a clean seat. In the yogic perspective, of course, they talk about the kusa, the grass, or the cotton, or the jute fabric, a steady posture. So then your mind, the purity of your mind also need to be attained at this point of your upasana, your journey. And so when we look at the scriptures, then in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that for meditation, we need to prepare the space, a clean space, a good seat, and then a good clear body, a clear mind, and the clear pranas to have a sense of steadiness. Sandilya Upanishad mentions the socha is the foundation of the spiritual discipline or the spiritual journey. Of course, Hatha Yoga Pradipika defines the purity, the socha, as a very basis of even starting the journey of the asana, pranayam, and the yogic relaxation, or the yoga nidra, or the meditation techniques. So sankalpa, then once you have the sankalpa, then your purity, or the cleansing of the space, cleansing of yourself. And then that leads us to the third point. As we're talking about cleansing, then third point we have prana suddhi. Now, I'm not sure, I think I missed few words here. So some scriptures will talk about the prana suddhi. Some scriptures refer it with the mano suddhi, or the mano sthirta, stability of the mind. And how do we develop the stability of mind? By stabilizing the breath, isn't it? So changing the breath into regularity, rhythm, repetition. Now, it is something I have found very much interesting, that in modern Sanatan Dharma, including even like the priests, people in temple and stuff, when I meet with them, they seem to have forgotten about it. But in the ancient Sanatan scriptures, the one pranayam that we all know very well is the Nadi Sodhan Pranayam. So in most classical practices, even some of the ancient temple rituals, say if you're going to do Gayatri Mantra, or if you're going to do a Yagya ceremony, or you're going to do some sort of rituals, all those rituals, once you cleaned your seat, you prepare an asana, then it highly recommends to follow a good kala, or one cycle, which in the kala cycle, one cycle can be between 6 to 9 minutes depending on the state of your mind. So if your mind is very stable, then it will be around 9 minutes. If your mind is like feeble all over the place, then because the time changes, isn't it? The time is a perspective, how active we are. So 6 to 9 minutes, Nadi Sodhan Pranayam. And just to be clear, as I'm talking in the classical Sanatan text here. So in the Sanatan system, Nadi Sodhan Pranayam is inhaling through the left nostril, exhale right nostril, hold out. And then inhale right nostril, exhale left nostril, and hold out. And we repeat, sort of in the Upanishads, they talk about the 5 kumbhakas. So that's the 5 cycles of the breath, isn't it? So so that becomes 5 is the 10 kumbhakas. So the 5 cycles will mean 10 kumbhaka practice. Now that Nadi Sodhan Pranayam, depending on how advanced we are, that may be or may not be practiced with the bandhas. Okay, so that is to stabilize our prana, stabilize our mind, and it is also known to be the practice of inner purification, antar suddhi. It is to purify our subconscious, unconscious mind, and burn the karmic or the samskaric imprints which may impact or effect on our breathing. Now, Krishna in Bhagavad Gita has a much simpler practice. He just said to prepare our mind, to stabilize our prana and our asana, just sit still, sit quiet, and gaze your mind at tip of your nose and watch or witness your breath, how the breath goes in and how the breath goes out. So that becomes the third step into the very typical Sanatan process of getting closer to the divine. Now, looking at few scriptural references, like a Prasana Upanishad, it says the prana is the life force, and when we can sustain or discipline that prana, then our mind and the cognitive faculties will be disciplined or easily in tuned or attuned with the divinity. Prana is also understood to be the bridge between our physical, our mundane field of existence to the cosmic or the astral field of existence. So in that way, by attuning with the pranic energy or the pranic vitality, we can transcend the physical reality into the pranic field or into the vital field where the conscious spirit can be experienced. And then, of course, in the Hatha Yoga Pradipika, we remember, hopefully we all remember, the prana flows where the mind goes. So by disciplining the breath, we are disciplining the mind. So that means we are going to be able to focus more easier on that principle of the divinity, the god or the goddess, whatever we follow. Moving into the fourth one is the Deha Ahavana, or the invocation of the divine into the physical realm. So the Deha is the physical field of the experience, and in that one we are using our physical being. So like lighting a lamp, sometime you may have the, like in the temples, you will see that we rotate the flame around the statue. And I think in Christianity also they go around with the smoke and the lamp and stuff. So that will be invoking that quality of the divine in our physical field or physical realm in which we exist, offering incenses to the divine. So again, it's a physical practice, isn't it? Chanting the mantra or the names of the divine, like Om Namah Shivaya or Om Namah Durgaya, Om Ganganapataye Namah. So, whatever we have in our cultural appropriate practices, and bowing to that quality of the divine, sort of like, it can be as far as Dandavat, lying flat on your front. I know in each religious context, then that bowing can be different. Like I quite like, in Christianity, when you're sitting on the bench, you just interlock your hands and you put your head down, isn't it? That is like surrendering to that quality of the divine or the Christ consciousness. And so these are really some of the simple practices where you are invoking that quality of the divine in the physical form, and here you are using your body as a tool to do that. Like I think some of you in the temples in India, you would have done that Samamudra, isn't it? Holding to the opposite ears and bowing. So that's also a ritual to invoke or offer your physical, your intellectual, your life being, and say, all that mistake I have done, please forgive me. So inviting the divine to come into that field. Looking into some of the scriptures, it's interesting, like the Rig Veda says that when we are invoking the divine, then we need to invoke it within ourselves. So themselves, beginning with the invocation. Typically, the Vedic system is the Surya system. It follows the sun. So the Agni is usually a very typical concept that you will always see, lighting a lamp or a candle or offering that into the ceremonies. The Ken Upanishad, it says the divine awareness awakens through that invocation. So whenever you invoking that quality of the divine or the divine awareness, divine consciousness awakens within us. And I honestly, now and then I think of some of these invocations are like you are tuning your Wi-Fi, your frequency, your experiential frequency, so you can listen the divine vibration, a little bit like the radio in our car, that whatever channel you tune to, you listen that music. So the music is always there. So similarly, you can think the divine is there, but we need to tune into that frequency of the divine to experience those qualities. The Pancharatra Agam, it says that Avahan, which is again another word for the invocation, is the essential first act into the worship or first step towards getting closer to the quality of the divine. Okay, the next one, they're moving into the fifth point, which is the Murti Dhyana, or meditation on the statue or the sculpture or the mandala, I guess, if you want to use that word too. This is to deepen our focus. I guess, to me, now we have come to what we call the samyama in the yogic terminology, dharana, a focus point. A meditation and dhyana is to absorb. So now you got something as a statue or something physical with you. So let's say if you are worshipping the sun. So then for sun, you may not have a statue. You may just stand outside in the morning when the sun is rising and you offer your radiance, you offer different symbols like flowers, fruits, or water, or the lamp, the incense to the sun, if there is a statue or whatever. So we visualize or we meditate on the radiant form. So typically you would not see these forms as a dull or lethargic. They are very radiant. This is probably why the Indian artists, when they created these magnificent or most beautiful, mesmerizing statues and the artwork of these gods and goddesses, when you look at them, the minute you look, it's so mesmerizing. It's just like withdraws your mind, it steals your mind from yourself. So that is why they need to be radiant. They need to be mesmerizing. And then in that we have the symbols and the attributes. And not the next one, but probably, in the new year, then we can do one lesson on looking at different symbols and why, like, some gods have the trident, some gods have the flowers, some have the pictures and stuff. So then we also create those symbols, or we offer those attributes to those qualities, again, to tune into that frequency of the divine or the godly love. And you cannot, sometimes your offering can be as simple as a divine smile or compassionate view, like when you're looking at a statue, when you're looking at the god. Similar to me also, when we look at each other, isn't it? We can invoke a divine friendship in each other, or we can invoke a demonic enmity between each other. How we are expressing through our eyes, our words, the symbols and expression. So in the Murti Dhyana, when we are meditating on that statue, that can be a photo, that can be a sculpture. Sometimes it can be as simple as like a saligram, just placing a stone. That's it's a very common part in the Indian culture. And then invoking that quality in the lotus of our heart. So in the Bhakti tradition, in this invoking, most of the time when we invoke these gods or goddesses, it is invoked into the heart center. Of course, in the Kundalini and Tantra, then there is a different gods and goddesses in each of the chakra. But in the worship traditions, if I'm happy, if you all find for me to use that word for now, typically any god or the goddess you invoke, it will be invoked into the heart center. So then in the Bhagavad Purana, it describes a very detailed visualization of the Vishnu in the meditation. It talks about his facial expression, his arms, head, and all these different qualities. Which, whenever we talk about different gods and goddesses, probably we look into these attributes. And as I said, the one, not the one after, but the one after that, then we will look into these attributes or the qualities of the divine we look at as we go into the practice. I think I will take a little pause here to see if everyone is finding it okay. Now, I know in the Murti Puja or the idol worship, lots of us may have a different resistance, especially when we become scientific and all that. And yes, it is there, and it can be understood at real or unreal. And I really like, again, there is a beautiful event of Swami Vivekananda. So he was actually with the king of Khetadi, and this king, he was so much interested in in the wisdom, and he was very interested in the Sanatan Dharma. And Swami Vivekananda, he spent quite a lot of time in the Khetri. So that's the place where I grew up. I think Siddhant, he went to that place. We did not go inside, did we? But we see the outside of that building where Swami Vivekananda used to go. Where we had that picture on the building. So now he was talking to the king, who the king happened to be anti-Murti Puja. So he was against the idols, he was against the statues and photos and stuff. And so Vivekananda, he's just having a bit of fun with him. And, the guy who brings him a glass of water, Vivekananda looks at him and he said, "Can you take that picture off the wall?" And on the wall, it was a picture of this king's granddad. So he brings the picture and he looked at the king and he said, "Can you spit on it?" So the king got really angry, like, "How on earth you want me to do that? He is my granddad." And he's like, "Oh, is he really your granddad, or it's a photo of the granddad?" So then Vivekananda explained, said, "Yes, the statue is not the divine, but a photo, a statue, a symbol is the adhara." So the adhara is the base or the foundation or the dharana. I think that's the word probably we all know more than the adhara. It is a focus point for the mind to connect, to tune, or to tune the radio of the mind into the divine frequency. So to me, when I think about it, think of the statues or the photos, the mandala, the form is a way for the mind to tune into the divine frequency. And then I think that's the time then the king, he was like, "Oh, I'm really sorry. Now I see the point. It is a scientific practice for the mind that may not be able to concentrate or focus on the abstract concept of the divine, isn't it?" And that was the story I just wanted to give you all, to like how useful that tool can be. But if some of you find it easy to just meditate on the heart chakra and offer yourself to the cosmic consciousness, I'm not telling you to also go back to the other concept. Okay, so I hope I'm clear enough. So I'll take a little break. If anyone got any question or something want to add, please do.
I've got a question about there seems to be a ritual to do with the murti, where it's a basic statue, but there seems to be some ritual to make that statue special. So, what is the difference? Because you're using it as a point of focus. So does it matter that it's not been through that ritual to make it something more? Do you know what I mean?
It is something more. So this is where the first step, go back to the first step, Susan, that was sankalpa. So the minute you're placing that statue, what is your sankalpa?
Okay.
Is it to just to bring the beauty in your garden?
Mhm.
Or is it to bring beauty in the garden of your heart? So that, yes, the sankalpa in the what we call the pratishtha in the temples, we call it a pratishtha, the murti pratishtha, or housing the divine. That is the most important part.
Right.
So in that process, now I know, now we have accessibility to the statues everywhere, but actually in the older time, still, I know, I think probably when I go back to India next time, I will take some photos. There's so many temples where you will find, the small temples in a farm, in a village, in countryside, where they just have a little stone. I think in the Western culture, we call them saligram, isn't it? I think that's the word saligram. So for Hanuman, you can place a stone. For Lord Shiva, for Lakshmi, people can place a stone and then decorate it. So it's not, see, the divinity is not in the statue on its own. The divinity manifests through the sankalpa.
Oh, got it. Okay, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
And that's the difference, it's not that the statues we put everywhere in the house to decorate. I don't think they have the same quality to the statues that you establish for that purpose. And I think the sankalpa of that quality, really, I think it's in our clothes too. I'm just going to the totally opposite extreme. But the clothes that you wear for your yoga practice, and the clothes you wear to go out for a party. I think biologically it has a different connotation. You will feel physically different. The hormones, the biochemicals in our body different. And you think, what's the difference between the clothes we wear when we are going out to meet with friends for a party and the clothes we wear to get on our yoga mat? What's the difference between a yoga mat and any other rug in the house? There is a different quality, isn't it? So yes, establishment of that statue or the photo or the saligram and the intention, the ritual behind it is what changes into the divine quality. So I hope that sort of takes us back to the step one. I think Deepa asked which one is the fifth step, if that's the correct. So this is the fifth step, Deepa.
No, you said in case if you're not able to have a complete body wash, the Panch Anga which you mentioned.
So the Panch Anga, so your hands, your feet, then the face. So face, you have the facial cavities. So your eyes, ear, mouth. So that's one cavity. And then you have the genitals and we have the anal area. Yeah. So even like if a typical ritual, so when even like you have a bath, then you will always see them sprinkling water to the hands, to the feet and around the body. So the idea is to cleanse those 5 points. Yeah. Okay. So then we're moving further into this process. So the next step typically is the mantra japa. Repeating or reciting those sacred mantras. In mantras, usually we have the audible chanting. So like Om Upamsu. So that's a bit of whispering, like sometimes we whisper or utter in our mind. And then we have the mansik, the mental chanting. Now in the mansik japa, it can also be likhit, where you write the mantra. Sometime it can be the sravana, when you only listening the mantra. Like sometimes we play the mantras in the background. So the mantra chanting becomes quite important as the next journey. And of course, each of the gods and goddesses, they will have their appropriate mantras to their quality. Like for Surya, we have simplest one is Om Suryaya Namaha. For Durga, we have Om Namo Durgaya, Om Hanumante Namah, or Om Ganganapataye Namah. So for different qualities and different energies, there are the mantras we invoke or we chant to tune into the divine frequency or vibration of that divine quality. Now, in the scriptural basis, you can see the Yajurveda mentions that mantra protects the one who repeats it. So the mantra also creates a very strong protection energy to our body, mind, and spirit. Now, typically in the Manduka Upanishad and in the yoga, the Om is the mantra of all of them, isn't it? So when we recite the mantra Om, we can tune into the Brahman, the supreme consciousness. The Bhagavad Gita says the same about the Pranava Om. So, in the typical Sanatan Dharma, then the Om becomes the essence of all the mantras. But other mantras we have like Sat Chitananda or Aham Brahmasmi, and there are so many mantras probably you all know very well. So repeating that mantra as Yoga Sutra, Patanjali says, chanting it out loud, knowing the meaning or the essence of it, and then meditating on it, and then finally transcending in that quality or in the essence. So think of like, say, if we are chanting the mantra, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So the first part is chanting the mantra. Then the second one is knowing the meaning, means the essence. Why are we chanting it? To invoke the peace or the tranquility. Then you meditate on it to allow that tranquility to manifest. And then we transcend into that tranquility. So hopefully the anger, the pain, fear, resentment, the conflict can dissolve into the peacefulness or into the tranquility. Then the seventh step into this sadhana, into the upasana, is bhava samarpana. So the bhava samarpana can be the cultivation of the devotion, cultivation of the love. And here really we are offering our feelings, our emotions to the divine. Like I don't know, like how many of you have that connection with the divine where you can go and sit in front of the whatever the god, goddess, or the temple, church you believe in, and you can complain and you can wince and you can say, I love you, and the anger, all the emotions. So you actually surrendering or offering your feelings, your emotions to that divine form or the divine love, which is again to soften or open our heart. I think like Christianity is definitely, like I know very good in the bhava samarpan, offering the love and surrendering to the divine in the church or to the Christ. Similarly, in the Krishna consciousness, Krishna bhakti, we love Krishna as a friend, as a brother, as a lover. So here we offer those emotions, those feelings to the divine and surrender ourselves in the divine bliss, or channel ourselves, the more subtle layer of our being into the divine consciousness. Now, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that when you offer your love, your feelings to the divine receives it or accepts it, receives it, and you get it back. And I think my favorite concept, think of the love. So the love for the divine is bhakti. Then the lover, so that's the bhakta itself, so devotee. And then beloved, so then you are loved back by the divine principle. So when you begin to offer that bhava, that emotional, the feeling being to the divine, then you will begin to receive that love back. And I think it's same in our relationships, isn't it? As long as there is a two-way communion or the exchange. But of course, the divine does not have a blockage, so we feel that love back. In the Bhagavad Puran, says that the bhakti, this love, this bhava of love to the divine, it purifies our heart. And then in the Narad Bhakti Sutra, it says that the bhava of the bhakti, the love or the devotion, is the highest form of the devotion that takes us to the divine, straight into the heart of the divine. So something to think about. Then we have the number 8, which is antar yajna. This is the inner worship. In inner worship, probably the ones who done some mantras, the Mrityunjaya mantra is a really beautiful example. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe. So in the triangle mandala of the heart, I establish myself. Sugandhim Pusti Vadanam. So I'm offering the beautiful flowers with the fragrances which are drawing my mind, transcending my mind into the divine principle of the immortal supreme being or the supreme consciousness of the Shiva. So in our heart, we may offer our thoughts. So how we offer our thoughts? Wow, every thought we devote to the divine. So like I'm just thinking of the practicing Hamsa Kriya. Okay, Soham. Breathing in the divine Hamsa, breathing in the I to dissolve into the spirit, or Sat Chit Ananda. If you repeat it with the in-breath, Om with the in and out breaths, you're offering your thoughts to that divine vibration. You can offer your breath to the divine vibration. You can offer your emotions. And also then we had one of the step was to meditate on the murti, the statue, the photo or the form. But we can also create an imagery or imagining or visualizing the divine dancing in our heart or meditating in our heart. So that part becomes the antar yajna. So that means for antar yajna, you don't have to go to a temple. You don't have to have a spiritual space for the ritual. These rituals can be done wherever you are. you know, it's like, it's really probably one of the most accessible tool that we can have in our sadhana, in our journey to connect with the divine. The only thing is, to me, I think like this is a pretty advanced stage, isn't it? So we need to have lots of training, lots of preparation to do that. So like the Katha Upanishad say, the divine resides in the heart cave. So that means there is a temple already within each one of us, and nurturing or invoking the divine within ourselves, within our space, is a way to experience the divinity. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that offerings we can do within ourselves, internal. So Krishna says you can offer your thought, you can offer your gratitude, you can offer your love, you can offer your compassion. So, you know, if you don't have the physical flowers, physical food, physical money set, you can offer everything within your own heart, and that is far more valuable on the bhakti or connection to the divine than the physical things itself. Kaivalya Upanishad talks about meditating within ourselves in the heart lotus, and seeing that self to be self-realized, to be attained. So up to the 7th, there is a physical worship. Now we are looking at the inner journey where it's all happening, I guess, within ourselves, which leads us to the 9th step of the dhyana or the meditation. You know, meditating on the quality of the divine. Now, your meditation can be a mantra meditation, a mandala meditation, a pranayama meditation, or a contemplative meditation, or a visionary meditation where you create an image or the quality of the divine. And again, you know, in looking in some of the scriptures, like Bhagavad Gita says, the mind can become steady if we, you know, if we meditate it on the divine. It's a little bit like, you know, like lighting the lamp in a place where there is no wind blowing. So if we stabilize ourselves and meditate on the divine, then hopefully the mind will attain that sense of steadiness. A dhyana or meditation can lead us into this continuous flow of the chetana, the consciousness, into the divine principle. The meditation guides us towards the state of turiya, or the pure consciousness, abundant consciousness, where we can experience these divine qualities through the ability of our higher mind or our conscious mind. And then taking us to the 10th step, which is the samarpan. This is actually the closing prayer. You know, offering our gratitude. I know, like in the Sanatan system, we always close our practice with Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu, which is offering that hopefully my journey, my sadhana is not only bringing the peace, positivity to me, but let the positivity, the bliss to spread all and everywhere. So there is always a closing prayer, expressing our gratitude, expressing the Shanti mantra, and also offering the blessings to others. So whenever you do the prayer, typically it would not be closed by, okay, I had enough. You offer something outward to the world. That can be physical offering, like in temples, you see the prasadam is being offered, or the priest goes around with the lamp, or they go around with the flame, they go around with the tilakam, you know, the dot that we place on the forehead. So that becomes the closing practice, the samarpan or the shanti, the gratitude offering. And the closing is as important as the opening of the practice. So you can see that we have the sankalpa to begin, and now we have the sankalpa to close. Typically, the closing sankalpa is universal, and this is, I know this is the Vedic or the Sanatan quality. Instead of looking at ourselves as an individual, we look at the collective bliss, because it says that to experience the divine within ourselves, it takes quite a lot of sadhana, quite a long journey, but to experience divine through others is very easy. And so seeing the divine and offering the divine quality or the divine gratitude in each and every being. And I think I don't need to explain much because we close every practice with the loka, samasta, sukhino, bhavantu. So that means we are offering the whole world, the whole universe to say thank you and may you all be peaceful and blissful, which is, gratitude for letting us do the practice, letting us do the session or the sadhana. So anyway, so those are sort of like the 10 fundamental steps in the Sanatan system or the Sanatan Dharma. And I know you can also include few more, like a Hatha Yoga practice if you wish to. You can include, some offering of the prasadam that can be there, but I just left some of them as I wanted to make it as practical as it can be for our day-to-day life, for day-to-day sadhana. I think when I look at the attributes, probably I will bring some of those rituals in to explain the importance of those practices, which, yeah, I think I will stop here to see if you got some questions. Yes, Ruby, please.
Presumably, once any part of that becomes routine, that practice is no more. It needs to go back to the start again, because if it's not done with full conscious, then it's nothing.
I think, like I personally think, Ruby, love cannot be a routine. If you think about, if just think of simply, love can never be a routine, can it? We can't be friendly to each other because it has become a habit. We need to have that friendliness or the bhava, the emotion of love, compassion and kindness. So I know what you mean, but I also think that some of these qualities, they cannot be habitual, because if it's habitual, then there is no love there anymore. But you're totally right. We need to do it like we have never done it before. So it's not just like, we light the lamp and we bell the ring and do the circling around and chant the Gayatri mantra. No, then it is an ego practice. If that's what you want to say, yes, I totally agree with that. Then it's more of the ego practice to demonstrate that I've done my prayer today. But I think for me, the quality I'm looking in this lesson today is the quality of love, compassion, devotion, and that cannot be a habit. Like to me, if I don't see how my love for you all can be a habit, because when it becomes habit, you would not feel it, would you?
Yeah, but you also want us to come back again. No, I mean that's an interesting concept. One of my other teachers, he was saying that actually when we say these words at Christmas, they should be said with meaning, because otherwise it's just empty words, that actually they need to have that love and compassion there, because otherwise it's nothing. Just saying the words doesn't actually mean it unless that comes with intention and from the heart.
No, I totally agree with it. That is, I 100% agree. I think, like, to me, whenever we talk about compassion, love, devotion, kindness, affection, the words have no meaning. Words have no meaning because they need to be felt, like, say if you come and be with me for a couple of days and you did not feel any love, any friendship, and then I can keep messaging you every day. Oh, I love you so much. I care for you so much. I have abundance for you. And then you would just like, wow, I was there for 3 days. All I felt is ignorance, negligence. So no, you're totally right. These practices, to me, I guess, probably a difference between a ritual and a upasana. A ritual can be habitual. An upasana, to me, you need to be conscious. You need to have your real feeling, your real emotion. And I personally think, Ruby, really our whole life need to be like that. To me, a word has no essence. It's no point saying something that we don't mean. I would rather we don't say it. So at least we're not, fooling each other, isn't it? But thank you for adding that point. Yeah, you're totally right. Yes. Yes, Sue, please.
I've got a story about, it's about the goddess Tara. So it kind of comes from my Buddhist practices. My teacher told me a story of one of his students who was doing the Tara practice, and she said, oh, it's so wonderful, I can really visualize Tara and I feel it. But he stopped it, and she was getting the chant wrong, so he corrected her. So away she went, and she started practicing it the correct way. And she came back to him, and she said, it's gone. I can't feel it anymore. So he just said, oh, go back to the way you were doing it before. You know, it doesn't really matter if you don't get it perfect. It's the feeling that counts. So I just thought that was a really nice story.
Yeah, that's totally true. It's not the word, it's the essence, the love that if that's not radiating through your spirit, then it doesn't matter how perfectly we chant. You know, I think I can take so many examples of these amazing singers, like some of the top bhajan singers in the Indian list of classical singers. They're like terrible people. I'm sorry. I don't want to name because Deepa is listening me today. But otherwise, I can list some of them. It's like terrible. Like you can't sit with them for more than 5 minutes. So yes, without that essence, that quality, the love, the purity, the vibration, the words, the singing has no meaning. Yes, Sue, please.
I just wanted to say really that although you can establish routines and rituals, what you've done before and what you're going to do is irrelevant because we've only got the now. So you've got to stay rooted in the now, haven't you? And now is where you have to feel that essence. You can't sort of backtrack and just because you did it yesterday that it'll have the same sort of meaning. I just think I read something today about, you know, yeah, we only exist in this field, in this dimension now as it is, isn't it? So if you give it everything, then every moment we have now is the important one to feel that emotion. So in some ways, routines can't exist, can they?
No, definitely no. And, you know, I think when we become routine, anything that becomes routine, probably there is no love anymore. Yeah, it's very interesting discussion. Thank you, Ruby, for initiating this new dimension. But definitely the love, connection, affection, or this sort of new realm or experience we want to open, it doesn't exist in the words. It does not exist in a meaningless act. It does not exist in an emotionless ritual. It is an emotion. It is a love. It is a feeling, you know, that need to vibrate from the core. You know, we need to feel it in our skin. We need to feel it in our eyes. We need to feel it in our heart. And until we feel it, we can keep doing it. It's just like more like a drama than the real, isn't it? So yeah, thank you. Anyone else? Maybe Siddhant or Emma or Deepa?
I think like everybody was discussing, it's mainly the bhava which matters. Even if you're doing it every day as a habit or something, but I think if in that habit, if the bhava is there, so it comes as a devotion.
Yes. No, I think habit is okay, isn't it? Because it's a bit of fine line between defining what is habit and what is true or what is innocent. Because sometimes also we may not feeling doing it. So then
Yes.
a sankalpa, a routine, a habit can break that cycle and we still do it. And it's definitely nice to have a bit of few rituals as a daily practice, you know, like as simple as like lighting a lamp or lighting a light, you know, like in a typical Sanatan system, at the time of sunset, it doesn't matter, even if you want to sleep, people will light the light, turn the lights on, people will light some candles or incenses, even for 5-10 minutes. So some of these rituals actually can break the cycle of our mental lethargy or physical lethargy, conditioning, whatever we are doing. But to use them to connect with the divine, then they need to be very much conscious. And the power in your sadhana, in your upasana, will come where your feelings, your emotions, your faith, or you are connected with it. And you know, a few years ago, I remember actually I was visiting Fatima, and I went with somebody who is quite. I thought they were really amazing. Sometimes people can be amazing, but when they are in a certain space, They can be a completely different people. So now we go to Fatima, and I just want to, connect with the consciousness and this Christian ritual, and I can see people walking on their knees and lighting the candle, and all through the journey. Now that person could not stop talking about, oh my God, I can't believe how much money they put into this place. It could have been used to build a cancer hospital, could have been built hospice. I don't know, of course, some of her excuses, I thought, were quite amazing to think, okay, yeah, that makes sense. But then I was just like, actually, there is a need for a home of the spirituality or the divine for people who need it. So somebody like me, if nothing is working for me, I'm in a darkest place. If I can go in those places and spend a couple of hours there and give my cry to the divine, I come out and like feeling, okay, if nobody else is with me, at least there is a divine with me or within me. So yes, that how the feeling, the emotion, the intent is what makes it powerful. And if you have that power, then a stone can become a divine for you. A photo can act like a divine. An image can be act like a divine. A person can act like divine. And if you don't have belief in it, then remember, like somebody like Lord Krishna. Wow. The good and the bad, they both lived with him at the same time, isn't it? So it's not that he only gave time to the Pandavas, he gave equal time to Duryodhana. He was talking to them as much as he was talking to Arjuna, but the one could never see it. Okay, so I think that's probably enough for today. And so I think we agreed that there will be no lesson next week. And yeah. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu sarve janaha sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. Namaste everyone. See you all for next lesson. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Say bye loudly.
Bye-bye.